Hello everybody, I hope you're keeping well. Welcome to my channel. Wishing each and every one of you a grand day rising. Now, I recently wrote to my MP for East Thanet, Polly Billington, regarding the Terminally Ill Adults End of Life Bill 2024 to 2025, case reference PB 05440. And I will read her reply, and I think you'll agree that it's lengthy and considered and measured. Now, Polly Billington is a Labour MP, but I do believe that we need to take our MPs, whatever party they belong to, at face value, and if they're doing the job fully and well, regardless of which party they stand for and whether or not we voted for them, then that's a good start. So this is what she says. Dear Catherine Evans, thank you for your email about the private member's bill that would legalise assisted dying for terminally ill adults, and for sharing your concerns with me. If you have written to me about this issue before, please accept my apology if you have seen some of the points below before in our previous correspondence. I can confirm that I voted against the bill last time it was voted on in the House of Commons and intend to do so again in future unless significant changes are made. Since the issue first arose last year, I have listened carefully to the views of residents of East Thanet, many of whom have shared deeply moving stories of pain and loss that continue to shape my thinking about this difficult issue. On the 2nd of November last year, I invited every constituent who had emailed me about assisted dying to a listening event in Margate to tell me their views. The experiences I heard at the event underscored for me my belief that the current situation for people with terminal illnesses is unacceptable, and action by the government is needed to ensure as many people as possible have the choice of a peaceful death that we would all want to have at the end of our lives. So the first point here is that she has been open and listening to people in East Thanet and hasn't just shut them down by either ignoring them or just sending a couple of one-liners and imposing whatever brand of non-listening is the popular one of the day. And it's also good that she actually held a special listening event in Margate so she could hear more stories and also take part in debate. As Kim Leadbeater MP has explained, her bill is seeking to give people who are terminally ill the option to end their own life at a time of their choosing, and protections against coercion or abuse. With those things included, I am sympathetic to what the bill is aiming to achieve, and with my colleagues who voted to support it. Nevertheless, I cannot shake the feeling that while the state of our health service and access to quality palliative and hospice care is so poor, legalising assisted dying at this time might leave vulnerable people in the unacceptable position of factoring the quality of care they might receive into a choice about whether to end their own life. So I'm reading between the lines here, and what she's saying, that because of the way things are, the bill as it stands remains open to corruption because of the services that are available, and therefore care and medical staff feel that furthering on people's end of life plan is the best way of improving numbers and statistics. I cannot simply overlook that reality because I'm sympathetic to the broader principle of allowing people greater choice over the end of life. I have spoken to doctors in recent months who have expressed serious concerns that at present there is suffering taking place during end-of-life care that could be avoided if medical staff were better trained and equipped. If I was ever to support assisted dying legislation, I would need to be confident that medical practitioners know how they can support people in their final months, weeks and days. Until then, improving end-of-life care will remain my overriding priority. Likewise, I have listened particularly carefully to the views on disabled people who in many cases have underlined their lack of trust in the medical profession to act in their best interests. It is clear that urgent work is needed to remove discrimination from our medical system towards those with disabilities, who often fear that rather than giving them choice, assisted dying legislation could actually remove protection from them. The result of the vote last year means that the bill has now moved to a public bill committee of cross-party MPs, where it is being scrutinised closely before further scrutiny takes place in the House of Lords. It will then return to the House of Commons for final third reading vote of MPs later this year. We cannot dismiss concerns about coercion lightly, and I am concerned that as part of the bill committee process, Kim Leadbeater has tabled an amendment that removes the involvement of a High Court judge from the process and replaces them with an expert panel who would adjudicate on assisted dying cases. While I am supportive of the involvement of psychiatrists and social workers in this process, I am nevertheless worried that, if passed, this amendment represents a further weakening of a piece of legislation that I already did not believe contained sufficient protections from abuse. You can hear me talking about my concerns with this amendment in a recent radio interview by clicking here, and I will go and watch that. And what she says is perfectly understandable, and she points out about the fact that the bill doesn't have sufficient protections from abuse. She's heard enough stories and spoken to enough people from various walks of life to have reached that conclusion, as well as no doubt having certain ideas and beliefs of her own and maybe experiences through family and friends as well. As the passage of this bill continues, I will be working hard to ensure the bill receives the scrutiny and amendment that is required to ensure that the final law that is voted on protects the most vulnerable and enables genuine choice and freedom for all those with terminal illnesses. I would only ever vote to support this law at third reading if I'm satisfied these crucial tests have been met. And that's the point. Will they be met? We've seen in the newspapers recently, if you're going to read the paper, I don't, but I have seen headlines, and certainly in the media online, about the loved ones of those who are disabled, whether that's being confined to a wheelchair, perhaps Down syndrome, maybe even autism, Asperger's, ADHD, and various other disabilities, whether visible or hidden, that those people will be targeted by the caring and medical professions and, let's say, encouraged to walk from the earthly realm. Finally, Polly Billington ends, I know there are some who will be disappointed that I did not vote in favour of this bill, but please rest assured that I will continue to listen carefully to the views of constituents on this difficult issue, and whether or not this bill becomes law, I will continue to champion improving the quality of care and the choices available to the terminally ill. And that is indeed good if an MP who may be a member of a party that does not align with our own beliefs, regardless, is going to be speaking up for those that she represents. Thank you to all those who have written to me about this issue, and please rest assured that I will continue to bear in mind the views you have shared with me when it comes to scrutinising this bill and voting on it again later this year. And I actually think that's a very measured response, and I do like the way my MP always explains in full and doesn't just send a one or two liner, but really talks about why she agrees or disagrees with something, even if ultimately you might not share all her, say, choices or principles or opinions. So that's the main thing we need to be looking at in an MP, whether they actually do respond, and in fact how they respond, and how much dialogue they have had with their constituents as well as colleagues and other individuals and professionals within society. And indeed, Polly Billington seems to respond to most of my emails, and they are all quite detailed as well, which is good. So we will see how things develop. I did write back to her just as a matter of courtesy, and I said, thank you so much for your response and your strength of empathy regarding this highly sensitive matter, and I concur with your concerns completely. I fully understand the need for debate and reflection, as well as the need to consider all those who are generally suffering and to bring them dignity in dying. However, like many, for personal reasons, I do not wholly trust that the measures in this bill would not be open to corruption and abuse, and I am particularly concerned, as you quite rightly point out, about those who are unable to or are persuaded or coerced to make a decision about ending their lives, and the rights of the disabled to live a full life without fear of having an end-of-life decision made for them, just for being disabled, for example. With best regards, and thank you for your honest, full and considered reply. And that's what I sent. I mean, while we could all pick holes in whatever our MPs send us, or become maybe a little recalcitrant at times, I really do feel it's important that we maintain open dialogue with our MPs in order to push forward a more humane and democratic and empathetic society. Anyway, I would be interested to have your comments, so please let me know. And if you enjoyed this video or found it informative, please like, share, subscribe if you haven't already done so. Thanks so much for watching, it's very much appreciated, and I look forward to seeing you again soon for the next one. Until then, bye for now.